Maya's phone alarm should have gone off at 4:30 in the morning, but it didn't. When her eyes finally opened and she glanced at the clock on her nightstand, her heart nearly stopped. 5:47 a.m. The red numbers seemed to mock her as reality crashed down like a bucket of ice water. "No, no, no, no," she whispered, throwing off her blankets and stumbling out of bed. Her flight to Seattle was at 8:30 and she lived a good 40 minutes from the airport, maybe longer with morning traffic. This was not how today was supposed to start. This was supposed to be the day that changed everything. Maya had been working on her startup for almost 2 years now. Late nights, early mornings, weekends that blurred into weekdays. She'd poured her savings, her time, and every ounce of energy she had into building something she believed in. A marketing platform that helped small businesses compete with the big players. It wasn't fancy, but it worked, and it worked well. The problem was money. She was running on fumes, and if she didn't get funding soon, she'd have to shut everything down and go back to working for someone else. That's why today mattered so much. After months of emails, phone calls, and virtual meetings, she'd finally convinced a group of investors in Seattle to meet with her in person. They wanted to see the passion, they'd said. They wanted to look her in the eye and know she had what it took to make this work. The meeting was at 1 p.m. She'd planned everything perfectly down to the minute. Arrive at 11:30, check into her hotel, review her presentation one more time, and walk into that conference room ready to change her life. But now, as she rushed through her apartment grabbing clothes and toiletries, that perfect plan was falling apart. She brushed her teeth while trying to zip up her suitcase. She pulled on her blazer while searching for her laptop charger. Everything felt rushed and wrong, and she could feel panic rising in her chest. The drive to the airport was a nightmare. Traffic was heavier than she'd expected, and every red light felt like a personal attack. She gripped the steering wheel, watching the clock on her dashboard tick forward. 6:42, 6:55, 7:03. She did the math in her head over and over. Security would take at least 30 minutes, maybe longer. She needed to be at the gate by 8:10 for final boarding. It was going to be tight. Really tight. When she finally pulled into the airport parking garage at 7:18, she felt a small surge of relief. She still had time. Not much, but enough if she hurried. She grabbed her carry-on bag, slung her laptop case over her shoulder, and practically jogged toward the terminal entrance. Her coffee from the drive-thru was still half full, and she held it carefully as she walked, not wanting to spill it on her white blouse. The airport was chaos, as always. Families with crying babies, business travelers with their faces buried in phones, elderly couples moving slowly with their matching luggage sets. Everyone had somewhere to be, and everyone looked stressed. Maya weaved through the crowd, her eyes scanning for the security checkpoint signs. Gate B27, she had it memorized. She'd checked her boarding pass at least 20 times since yesterday. As she walked past the check-in kiosks, she noticed the usual scene. People struggling with the touchscreens, bags piled everywhere, airline employees rushing around trying to help everyone at once. She'd been flying for years now, and airports had become almost like a second home. She knew the rhythm of them, the flow. Get through security, find your gate, wait, board, fly. Simple. But then something caught her eye that made her slow down just a little. An old man standing at one of the kiosks, and he looked completely lost. He was probably in his late 70s, dressed in a nice suit that looked expensive but slightly wrinkled, like he'd been traveling for a while. His white hair was neatly combed, and he had the kind of face that made you think of someone's grandfather. Kind eyes, even though right now they looked confused and frustrated. He was tapping at the screen with one finger, then pulling his hand back, then tapping again. His other hand was shaking slightly. Next to him, his small rolling suitcase had fallen over, and he hadn't even noticed. People walked past him without stopping. Everyone was in their own world, focused on their own problems and their own flights. Maya kept walking. She had to. Her flight was leaving in just over an hour, and she still hadn't gone through security. She couldn't afford to miss this flight. She couldn't afford to miss this meeting. Everything she'd worked for depended on her being in Seattle by this afternoon. But after about 10 steps, she stopped. She stood there in the middle of the terminal, people flowing around her like water around a rock. She looked back at the old man, who was still struggling with the kiosk, his frustration clearly growing. She thought about her own grandfather, who'd passed away 3 years ago. He'd been independent right up until the end, stubborn about asking for help. But sometimes he'd needed it, whether he wanted to admit it or not. Maya checked her phone. 7:22 a.m. She looked at the security line in the distance, then back at the old man. Every logical part of her brain was screaming at her to keep walking. But her heart was pulling her in the other direction. She took a deep breath, adjusted her bag on her shoulder, and walked back toward the kiosks. When she reached the old man, she set down her coffee and carry-on bag and smiled at him. He looked up at her, surprised that someone had actually stopped. "Excuse me, sir," Maya said gently. "Do you need some help with that?" The relief that washed over his face was immediate. "Oh, thank goodness," he said, his voice a little shaky. "I've been standing here for 15 minutes trying to figure this darn thing out. My daughter usually does all this for me, but she couldn't come with me today. I feel like such a fool." "You're not a fool," Maya assured him, stepping closer to look at the screen. "These machines can be tricky. What flight are you trying to check in for?" As he fumbled in his jacket pocket for his confirmation number, Maya glanced at the clock on the wall. 7:24. She pushed the worry down and focused on the screen in front of her. She'd help him quickly, get him sorted out, and still make her flight. It would be fine. It had to be fine. But as she started walking him through the check-in process, she had no idea that this simple act of kindness was about to change everything. The old man's name was Robert, and up close Maya could see just how much he was struggling. His hands trembled as he tried to pull out a crumpled piece of paper from his jacket pocket. It was his flight confirmation, printed out in large text, probably by his daughter. The paper was worn at the edges, like he'd been holding onto it tightly. "Here it is," he said, squinting at the numbers. "Flight 2847 to Phoenix. My wife is there, you see. She's in a care facility. Memory problems. I visit her every month, but the travel gets harder each time." Maya felt her chest tighten. This wasn't just some random trip for him. This was love, plain and simple. A man in his 70s, struggling with technology and the challenges of aging, making this journey month after month to be with his wife. She thought about her own parents, still healthy and independent, and wondered if she'd have that same dedication when the time came. "Let me help you," she said, taking the confirmation number and typing it into the kiosk. The screen loaded slowly and she found herself tapping her foot anxiously. Every second counted now, but she couldn't just walk away from him. The kiosk finally pulled up his reservation. Maya walked him through each step, explaining what she was doing in simple terms. Which button to press? Where to look on the screen? Robert listened carefully, nodding along, but she could tell he was overwhelmed. This wasn't his world. He came from a generation where you talked to a person at a counter, not a computer screen. "There we go," Maya said as the boarding pass printed out. She handed it to him and noticed how he held it with both hands, studying it carefully. "Now you need to check your bag. See that counter over there? The one that says bag drop?" Robert looked where she was pointing, then back at her with uncertainty in his eyes. "Will someone help me there?" Maya glanced at the bag drop counter. There was a line, but it was moving. She looked at her phone. 7:31 a.m. Her stomach dropped. She really needed to go. Security was going to take forever, and her gate was probably on the other side of the airport. But when she looked back at Robert's face, saw the worry there, she couldn't do it. She couldn't just point him in a direction and hope for the best. What if he got confused again? What if he missed his flight to see his wife? "I'll walk you over there," Maya heard herself say. She picked up his fallen suitcase and pulled it behind her while carrying her own bag. Robert walked slowly beside her, each step deliberate and careful. She wanted to move faster but matched his pace instead. At the bag drop counter, Maya explained to the agent that Robert needed a little extra help. The agent, a tired-looking woman who'd probably been dealing with rushed passengers all morning, softened when she saw Robert. She took his time, speaking clearly and making sure he understood each step. Maya stood nearby, ready to help if needed. While they waited for the bag to be tagged and sent through, Robert turned to Maya with gratitude in his eyes. "You know, most people just walk right past. I don't blame them. Everyone's in a hurry. But you stopped. Why?" Maya smiled, though inside she was screaming at herself to check the time. "My grandfather used to travel alone sometimes. I always hoped someone would help him if he needed it." "Your grandfather raised you right," Robert said. He pulled out his wallet, the old leather kind that men his age always seemed to carry, and showed her a photograph. It was worn and faded, but she could make out a younger Robert with a beautiful woman beside him, both of them smiling in front of what looked like the Grand Canyon. "That's my Betty. 54 years we've been married. She doesn't remember me most days now, but I go anyway. Sometimes she'll look at me and I'll see a flicker of recognition. That's worth every difficult trip. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. Here she was, worried about a business meeting, about money and success. And this man was making this hard journey just for the chance to see recognition in his wife's eyes for a few seconds. It put things in perspective. The bag was finally checked and Maya helped Robert understand where he needed to go next. Security is that way, she said, pointing to the checkpoint. You'll need to take off your shoes and belt, put everything in a bin. Do you think you can manage? Robert nodded, but she could see the uncertainty creeping back. Security checkpoints were confusing for everyone, let alone someone who didn't fly often. I think so. My daughter usually comes this far with me. Maya checked her phone again. 7:43 a.m. Her heart was pounding now. She was cutting it so close. Too close. But Robert looked so worried, so unsure. The security line stretched long and intimidating, and she knew how overwhelming it could be even for experienced travelers. How about I walk you through the line, she offered, even as every alarm bell in her head was ringing. Just to make sure you're all set. The relief on Robert's face was immediate. Would you? I don't want to make you late for your flight. It's okay, Maya lied. It wasn't okay. She was probably going to miss her flight. But what else could she do? Leave him here confused and alone? They joined the security line together, and Maya immediately regretted her decision. The line was even longer than it had looked from a distance, snaking back and forth through the roped barriers. People were packed in, irritated and impatient. A baby was crying somewhere behind them. A businessman in front kept sighing loudly and checking his watch. Maya tried to stay calm, but she kept calculating in her head. Even if the line moved quickly, which it wasn't, she'd barely make it to her gate in time. And security lines never moved quickly. Robert was telling her about Phoenix, about the care facility where Betty lived, about how the nurses there were kind but overworked. He talked about how Betty used to make the best peach cobbler, how she'd been a teacher for 30 years, how they'd raised 3 children together. Maya tried to listen, tried to be present, but part of her mind was racing ahead to Seattle, to the meeting she might miss, to the investors who wouldn't wait. As they inched forward in line, Robert suddenly stopped talking and looked at her with concern. You keep checking your phone. What time is your flight? Maya hesitated, then admitted, 8:30. Robert's eyes widened. That's less than an hour from now. Oh my goodness, and here I am keeping you. You should go ahead. I'll figure this out. But Maya looked at him, really looked at him, and knew he wouldn't figure it out. He'd get confused, maybe get pulled aside by TSA for doing something wrong, maybe miss his flight to see Betty. She'd come this far with him. She couldn't abandon him now. I'll be fine, she said, with more confidence than she felt. Let's just get you through security. By the time they reached the front of the line, Maya's hands were sweating. It was 8:02 a.m. She helped Robert put his items in the bins, reminding him about his belt, his shoes, his watch. He moved slowly, methodically, and she wanted to help more but knew she couldn't. Finally, he went through the metal detector without setting it off, and Maya felt a rush of relief. She quickly gathered her own things and rushed through, her mind already on her gate. But when she looked back, Robert was standing on the other side, holding his bins, looking confused about where to go to collect his belongings. Maya ran over, helped him get his shoes back on, his belt threaded through his pants. Your gate is going to be in Terminal B, she explained, pointing at the signs. Follow those markers. B for Phoenix. Can you remember that? Robert nodded, squeezing her hand with his trembling one. Thank you, young lady. You've been an angel. I hope you make your flight. Maya grabbed her things and ran. She didn't look back. Maya's chest burned as she sprinted through the airport. Her carry-on bag bounced awkwardly behind her, the wheels clicking rapidly against the polished floor. People turned to stare as she rushed past, but she didn't care. All that mattered was getting to gate B27 before that door closed. She checked the departure board as she ran. Her flight was still listed as on time with final boarding flashing next to it. That meant the door was probably seconds away from closing. She pushed herself harder, her laptop bag slapping against her side with each step. Terminal B felt impossibly far away. She passed gate after gate, the numbers seeming to move in slow motion. B15, B18, B21. Her lungs were screaming now. She wasn't used to running like this, and the stress of the morning was catching up with her. But she couldn't stop. She couldn't slow down. B24. B-25, B-26. She could see B-27 now, just ahead. There were still people at the gate counter. That was a good sign, right? If there were still people there, maybe the door wasn't closed yet. Maybe she still had a chance, but as she got closer, her hope started to drain away. The gate area was nearly empty. A few passengers were walking away, shaking their heads. The door to the jet bridge was closed. That heavy door with its red light glowing above it, the light that meant the flight had departed. "Wait," Maya shouted, stumbling up to the counter. The gate agent, a young man with tired eyes, looked up at her. "Please, I'm on this flight. I'm here. Please let me on." The agent glanced at her boarding pass, then at his computer screen, then back at her with genuine sympathy in his eyes. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The door closed 3 minutes ago. The aircraft has already pushed back from the gate." "No, no, no," Maya said, feeling tears spring to her eyes. "You don't understand. I have to be on that flight. I have a meeting in Seattle. It's important. It's the most important meeting of my life. I understand, and I'm truly sorry," the agent said, and he did sound sorry. "But once the door closes, there's nothing I can do. The plane is already moving. Federal regulations won't allow us to bring a passenger aboard once the aircraft has pushed back." Maya wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. She wanted to explain that she'd just sacrificed everything to help an old man, that this wasn't fair, that the universe owed her something for doing the right thing, but she knew none of that mattered. The plane was gone, and she wasn't on it. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and opened the Airline app, already searching for the next flight to Seattle. Her meeting was at 1 p.m. It was 8:24 now. If she could get on a flight in the next hour, maybe she could still make it. Maybe this nightmare could still have a happy ending. But as she scrolled through the options, her heart sank further. The next flight to Seattle was at 11:45 a.m., and it was completely sold out. The one after that wasn't until 2:30 p.m., which would get her there around 5 p.m. Pacific time. 4 hours after her meeting, there was another airline that had a 10 a.m. flight. But when she clicked on it, the price made her gasp. Over $1,200 for a last-minute ticket, and it only had first-class seats available. She couldn't afford that. She'd already spent almost everything she had on this trip, on her business, on keeping things running just a little bit longer. $1,200 might as well have been $12,000. Maya walked over to the nearest row of seats and collapsed into one. Around her, the airport continued its normal rhythm. Announcements echoed through the speakers. People rushed to their gates. Life went on. But for her, everything had just fallen apart. She called her business partner, Trevor. He answered on the second ring, his voice bright and optimistic. "Hey, you must be on the plane." "Good luck with the meeting today. You're going to kill it." "I'm not on the plane," Maya said, and her voice cracked. "I missed it." There was a pause. "What? How? What happened?" Maya explained everything. The alarm that didn't go off. The traffic. The old man at the airport. How she'd stopped to help him and lost track of time. As she talked, she could hear how it sounded. Careless, irresponsible. Like she hadn't cared enough about the meeting to prioritize it. "Maya," Trevor said slowly, and she could hear the disappointment in his voice. "You stopped to help a random stranger when you knew how important today was?" "I know," she whispered. "I know it sounds stupid, but you should have seen him, Trevor. He was so confused and lost. I couldn't just walk past him." "That's very kind of you," Trevor said, and she could tell he was trying to keep his emotions in check. "But we needed you at that meeting. We've been working toward this for months. Do you know what this means? If we don't get this funding, we're done. We'll have to shut down everything." "I know," Maya said again. Tears were rolling down her cheeks now. "I'm looking at other flights. Maybe I can do a video call with them instead. We can set up a Zoom meeting or something." "You know they won't go for that," Trevor said, frustration creeping into his voice. "They specifically said they wanted to meet in person. They want to see you present in front of them. That's the whole point." Maya knew he was right. She'd already tried calling the investor's office while searching for flights, but it had gone straight to voicemail. She'd left a message explaining the situation and asking if they could reschedule or do a virtual meeting. But she hadn't heard back, and deep down she knew what their answer would be. They told her from the beginning that they had a packed schedule, that this was their only window to meet. If she didn't show up, they'd move on to the next opportunity. There were always other startups looking for funding. "I'm sorry," Maya said, wiping her eyes. "I'm so sorry. I thought I could help him and still make the flight." I didn't think it would take so long, Trevor sighed. I know you meant well, but this is going to cost us everything we've worked for. I need to go. I have to figure out what we're going to do now. He hung up and Maya sat there staring at her phone. She felt numb. Everything she'd sacrificed for the past 2 years, all the late nights and early mornings, all the money she'd poured into her business, all the relationships she'd neglected and opportunities she'd passed up, all of it was gone because she'd stopped to help someone, because she'd made a choice that her brain had told her not to make. A woman with a cleaning cart walked past and Maya realized she was sitting in the middle of a gate area, crying. Other passengers were starting to arrive for the next flight, giving her concerned glances. She needed to pull herself together. She needed to figure out her next move, but what move was there? She had no way to get to Seattle in time. The investors wouldn't reschedule. Her business was going to fail, and she'd probably have to start looking for a job. Maybe she'd move back in with her parents for a while, save up some money, try to figure out what went wrong with her life. She thought about Robert, wondering if he'd made it to his gate okay. Wondering if he was on his plane right now, heading to Phoenix to see Betty. At least something good had come out of this morning. At least one person's day had turned out okay. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. Good luck with your big meeting today. I'm so proud of you. You're going to do amazing things. Maya almost started crying again. She typed back a simple thanks and put her phone away. She couldn't tell her mom what had happened. Not yet, maybe not ever. How could she explain that she'd thrown away her dream to help a stranger at an airport? She was about to get up to start the long walk back to her car when she heard her name over the airport intercom. Would passenger Maya Johnson please report to gate B27? Maya Johnson to gate B27. She looked up, confused. She was already at B27. The gate agent who'd turned her away earlier was looking at her, gesturing for her to come to the counter. Maya stood up slowly, not sure what was happening. Had they found a way to get her on a later flight? Was there some kind of problem with her ticket? As she approached the counter, she noticed the agent was holding a phone. He had a strange expression on his face, something between surprise and curiosity. Are you Maya Johnson? He asked. Yes, she said hesitantly. That's me. Someone from Airline management needs to speak with you, he said, handing her the phone. It's the executive office. Maya took the phone with trembling hands, completely bewildered. Why would the airline's executive office want to talk to her? Was she in trouble somehow? Hello? Maya said into the phone, her voice uncertain. Her hands were still shaking from the emotional roller coaster of the past few minutes. This is Maya Johnson. Good morning, Ms. Johnson, came a professional woman's voice on the other end. My name is Patricia Hayes, and I'm the executive assistant to the airline's CEO. I understand you missed your flight this morning. Maya's mind raced. How did they know that? And why did they care? Thousands of people probably missed flights every day. Yes, I did. I was helping someone and lost track of time. Is there a problem? No problem at all, Patricia said, and Maya could hear a warmth in her voice now. Actually, quite the opposite. The person you helped this morning was Robert Wellington III. Does that name mean anything to you? Maya searched her memory. Robert Wellington? It sounded vaguely familiar, like something she might have heard on the news or read in a business article, but she couldn't place it. I'm sorry, no. Should it? Patricia gave a small laugh. Well, Mr. Wellington is the founder and majority shareholder of this airline. He started the company 43 years ago with a single plane and a dream. Though he retired from day-to-day operations 5 years ago, he still owns the controlling stake in the company, and apparently you made quite an impression on him this morning. Maya felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. The confused old man she'd helped was the founder of the airline? The man whose company operated hundreds of planes and employed thousands of people? That didn't make any sense. He'd seemed so ordinary, so vulnerable. I don't understand, Maya stammered. He was just checking in for a flight to Phoenix. He needed help with the kiosk. Mr. Wellington occasionally travels incognito, Patricia explained. He likes to experience the airline from a customer's perspective. See how our staff and systems actually work when nobody knows who he is. He doesn't announce himself. He doesn't ask for special treatment. He just wants to see the truth of what traveling on his airline is really like. Maya sat down in the nearest chair, her legs suddenly weak. I had no idea. Of course you didn't, that's rather the point, Patricia said. But here's what matters. After you helped him, Mr. Wellington called me personally. He was quite emotional, actually. He said that in all his years of traveling like this, very few people have stopped to help him. Most are too busy, too focused on their own journeys. But you did. And when he asked around, when he checked the security footage and spoke with our staff, he learned something else. What? Maya asked, though she had a sinking feeling she knew where this was going. He learned that you missed your flight because you were helping him. The timestamps show everything. You arrived at the airport with plenty of time to make your flight, but you spent that time getting him checked in, walking him through bag drop, helping him understand the security process. By the time you got through security yourself, your flight had closed. Maya didn't know what to say. The words stuck in her throat. She'd been so focused on the disaster of missing her flight, on the lost opportunity and the consequences, that she hadn't thought about how it might look from the outside. She'd just been trying to help someone who needed it. "Ms. Johnson, are you still there?" Patricia asked. "Yes, I'm here. I'm just trying to process all this. I understand. It's quite a lot. But Mr. Wellington asked me to arrange something, and I need to know if you're willing. He'd like to meet with you in person. He's in our executive lounge right now. Would you be willing to come speak with him?" Maya's first instinct was to say yes, but then reality crashed back in. "I appreciate that, but I really need to figure out how to get to Seattle. I have an important meeting there this afternoon, and I've already missed my flight. I need to look at other options." There was a pause, and Maya could hear Patricia speaking to someone in the background, though the words were muffled. Then she came back on the line. "What time is your meeting in Seattle?" 1 p.m., Maya said. "But at this point, there's no way I can make it. All the flights are sold out or get in too late. Just come to the executive lounge," Patricia said, and there was something in her voice that made Maya think she knew something more. "Trust me on this. I think you'll want to hear what Mr. Wellington has to say. The lounge is in Terminal A near Gate A7. Someone will meet you at the entrance and bring you up." Before Maya could respond, Patricia had given her detailed directions and hung up. Maya stood there holding the phone, feeling like she'd stepped into some alternate reality. This morning she'd woken up late and rushed to the airport. Now she was being summoned to meet with a billionaire airline founder in an executive lounge. Nothing about this day made sense anymore. The gate agent was watching her with curiosity. "Everything okay?" he asked. "I think so," Maya said, though she wasn't sure. "I need to go to Terminal A." She gathered her bags and started walking, following the signs through the airport. Her mind was spinning with possibilities. Why did Robert Wellington want to meet with her? Was he going to thank her in person? Maybe give her some vouchers for free flights? That would be nice, though it wouldn't solve her immediate problem of getting to Seattle. The walk to Terminal A felt long, and with each step, Maya became more nervous. She looked down at her clothes. Her white blouse had a small coffee stain on it from her rushed morning. Her blazer was wrinkled from being shoved in her bag. Her hair was probably a mess from running through the airport. She was about to meet a billionaire, and she looked like she'd just run a marathon. When she reached the area near Gate A7, she saw a small doorway with a discreet sign that said Executive Lounge, Members Only. A woman in a crisp airline uniform was standing by the door, and she smiled when she saw Maya approaching. "Ms. Johnson?" the woman asked. "Yes, that's me." "Right this way, please." The woman led her through the door and up a short flight of stairs. At the top was another door, and when it opened, Maya stepped into a completely different world. The executive lounge was nothing like the chaotic terminal below. Soft music played in the background. The furniture was elegant and comfortable. Windows overlooked the runway, where planes took off and landed in graceful arcs. There were maybe a dozen people scattered throughout the space, all of them looking relaxed and comfortable, working on laptops or reading newspapers. And there, in a quiet corner by the window, sat Robert. But he looked different now. He was still the same elderly man she'd helped, but something had changed. Maybe it was the way he sat, with a quiet confidence. Maybe it was the fact that two younger people in business attire were standing nearby, clearly attending to his needs. Or maybe it was just that Maya knew now who he really was. Patricia, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor, approached Maya with an extended hand. "Ms. Johnson, thank you so much for coming. I'm Patricia. Mr. Wellington is just finishing up a call, but he'll be with you in just a moment. Can I get you anything? Coffee, water? Water would be great," Maya said, her mouth suddenly dry. As Patricia went to get her water, Maya stood awkwardly, not sure what to do with herself. She watched Robert, who was speaking quietly on his phone, occasionally nodding. After a moment, he looked up and saw her. His face broke into a warm smile, and he waved her over while ending his call. Maya crossed the lounge, and as she got closer, Robert stood up. He moved more confidently than he had at the check-in kiosk, but she could still see the slight tremor in his hands, the careful way he balanced himself. "Maya," he said, and his voice was stronger now too. "Please sit down. Thank you for coming." "Of course," Maya said, taking a seat across from him. "Though I have to admit I'm very confused about what's happening." Robert chuckled. "I imagine you are." "Patricia explained who I am?" She did. "I'm sorry. I should have recognized your name. I feel foolish." "Don't," Robert said firmly. "That's exactly why I travel the way I do. I want to see how people treat me when they don't know who I am. And you, Maya, you treated me with kindness and patience when you had every reason not to. You had somewhere important to be, didn't you?" Maya nodded, feeling emotion rise in her throat again. "A meeting in Seattle. The most important meeting of my career, actually. I was supposed to pitch my business to investors. And you missed your flight because you were helping me." "Yes." Robert was quiet for a moment, studying her. "Tell me about your business." Maya took a sip of the water Patricia had brought her, trying to gather her thoughts. Everything felt surreal. An hour ago, she'd been running through the airport in a panic. Now she was sitting in an executive lounge being asked about her business by a man who'd built an airline empire from nothing. "It's a marketing platform," she began, and then stopped herself. This wasn't the time for the polished pitch she'd practiced 100 times. Robert had asked her a simple question, and he deserved a real answer. "Actually, let me start over. 2 years ago, I was working for a big marketing agency. We had all these amazing tools and resources to help our clients. But I kept thinking about my uncle's restaurant, this little place in my hometown. He makes the best food, has loyal customers, but he couldn't compete with the chain restaurants because they had huge marketing budgets and sophisticated campaigns. He was trying to do everything himself with free tools and guesswork, and it wasn't working." Robert nodded, encouraging her to continue. "So I started building something in my spare time, a platform that gives small businesses access to the same kind of marketing insights and automation that big companies use, but at a price they can actually afford. Tools to understand their customers, create targeted campaigns, track what's working. I wanted to level the playing field a little bit." "And how's it going?" Robert asked. Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Honestly, it's been the hardest thing I've ever done. The platform works. Our clients love it. But running a startup is expensive, and I've been burning through my savings trying to keep things going. That's why today's meeting was so important. These investors in Seattle were our best chance at getting the funding we need to scale up. Without it, I'll probably have to shut down in the next few months." Robert was quiet for a moment, looking out at the runway. A plane was taking off, climbing into the morning sky. "You know what I see when I look at that plane?" he asked. Maya shook her head. "I see risk. I see faith. I see someone believing in something enough to bet everything on it." He turned back to her. 43 years ago, I took out a second mortgage on my house to buy a single-used plane. My wife thought I was crazy. My friends told me I was going to lose everything. But I believed that people deserved better airline service, and I was willing to risk it all to prove it could be done. "And you built all this," Maya said, gesturing around them. "I did. But do you know what the hardest part was? It wasn't the business strategy or the logistics or even the money. It was staying true to why I started in the first place. It's easy to forget when you're building something that it's supposed to be about people, about making their lives better, about serving them with integrity and kindness." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "That's what you showed me this morning, Maya. You had every reason to walk past me. You had somewhere crucial to be, but you saw another human being who needed help and you stopped. You sacrificed your own interest to serve someone else. That tells me more about your character than any pitch deck or business plan ever could." Maya felt tears threatening again. "It cost me everything, though. That meeting was my company's lifeline." "Was it?" Robert asked. "Or was it just one possible path forward?" Before Maya could respond, Patricia appeared beside them. "Mr. Wellington, the jet is ready when you are." Robert nodded, then turned back to Maya with a smile. "How would you feel about getting to Seattle after all?" Maya blinked, confused. "What do you mean? All the flights are sold out." "Commercial flights, yes," Robert said, standing up slowly. "But I have access to the company's private jet. It's currently sitting on the tarmac, fueled and ready to go. My original plan was to fly to Phoenix on the commercial flight, but I can do that tomorrow. Today, this jet is going to take you to Seattle. You'll land with 2 hours to spare before your meeting." Maya stared at him, unable to process what she was hearing. "You're giving me your private jet?" "I'm lending it to you for the afternoon," Robert corrected with a smile. "Consider it a thank you for your kindness this morning." "I don't know what to say," Maya whispered. "This is too much." "It's not nearly enough," Robert said. "But there's more." "Patricia, do you have the documents?" Patricia handed Robert a folder, which he opened and laid on the table in front of Maya. "I've been an investor for a long time. Built my wealth, now I try to put it to good use. I invest in people I believe in, people who remind me why I started my own company all those years ago. People like you." Maya looked down at the documents. At the top of the first page, she saw numbers that made her head spin. $250,000, $250,000. "This is a term sheet," Robert explained. "An offer to invest in your company. Obviously, you'll want your lawyer to review it, negotiate the terms, all of that. But I'm serious about this, Maya. I want to help you build what you're trying to build, not just because I think it's a good business opportunity, though I do, but because you've shown me that you're the kind of person who builds businesses for the right reasons." Maya couldn't speak. She looked at the documents, then at Robert, then back at the documents. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen in real life. "I know it's overwhelming," Robert said gently. "Take your time. Think about it. But right now you have a jet waiting to take you to Seattle, and you have a meeting to get to. So what do you say?" Maya found her voice, though it came out shaky. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. We spent maybe 30 minutes together." Robert smiled. "I've been in business for over 4 decades. I've sat through countless meetings, reviewed thousands of proposals, met with hundreds of entrepreneurs. You know what I've learned? You can tell more about someone in 30 minutes of watching how they treat a stranger than you can in 30 hours of business presentations. Character matters. Integrity matters. Kindness matters. And you have all three." He gestured toward the window where Maya could see a sleek private jet sitting on the tarmac. "That plane is waiting for you. Your meeting is waiting for you. Your future is waiting for you. All because you chose to help someone this morning without knowing what it might cost you. That's the kind of person I invest in." Maya stood up, her legs still feeling weak. Patricia was already moving toward the door, ready to escort her to the jet. This was really happening. She was really going to make it to Seattle. Her company was really going to survive. But before she left, she turned back to Robert. "Your wife, Betty. I hope you get to see her soon. I hope she recognizes you." Robert's eyes grew misty. "Thank you, my dear. And I hope your meeting goes wonderfully, though something tells me it will. Anyone brave enough to sacrifice their dreams for a stranger is brave enough to chase those dreams when given the chance." 20 minutes later, Maya was seated in the most luxurious airplane cabin she'd ever seen. Leather seats, polished wood,